Hello and welcome to this video. I'm basically making the same video that everyone is making at this point of time, and it is the most anticipating book releases of 2021. And I made a list at the beginning of January, a list of books that are coming out in a Word document. I browsed through the internets, to the blogs, to the medias, and I found many books. However, I took out the books that I'm most excited for, and it ended up being 13 books, and I'm planning to read those books as soon as they come out, actually, and make video reviews of them. So I want to make this list of the books that I'm most excited for, and it's kind of also a list of the book reviews you can look forward to if I follow through with the plan, which is a challenging plan, and I hope I will do this. So without further ado, because there's nothing much more to say about it, I will just go into the list. The list consists of literary fiction. There are some thrillers, I think, maybe. Dark academia books. They're so dark academia vibe books. Beautiful. There's also young adult. I don't think there's fantasy. I haven't looked at the science fiction and fantasy books that are coming out, because I have a lot of those on my TBR already. So I'm just gonna share with you, fiction, young adult, thrillers, literary fiction. That's all. And some continuations of the series I'm currently in the middle of. So yes, without further ado, let's just go ahead with the list. So in this video, I'm going through books by their current release dates, although that may change at any time. And I'm starting with February because on January, books have already come out, at least those that I was excited for, and I'm gonna mention some that already came out at the end of the video, but right now I'm just gonna start with February and go up to December. So the first book on this list is Those Who Run Towards Fire by Fridrik Backman, and it is the third book in the Beartown series. I loved Beartown. I adored Us Against You, which is the second book in this series, I guess, or a trilogy, and now we're getting the third book. However, the publishing date is still not known. This is the only book whose publishing date is still not revealed, so I don't know when I will be able to read it. I just know that as soon as it comes out, I will read it, because it has one of my favorite book characters of all time in it. And I just need to know what happens to him. I just need to know that he's fine, that he'll be okay, although I know he won't be okay. It's very emotional. So real quickly, this series is about two towns, Beartown and another town, and the hockey rivalry between the two. So we are following a group of characters. They're all different, from different social strata, different families, and we're following them and their problems and how they're connected to hockey. You never know with Backman. He may go in various directions, and I'm here for it, here for every direction. I love it, and I can't wait to read that book. But I don't know when it's coming out yet. So the next book that is coming out on February the 2nd is Milk Fed by Melissa Broder. And this book has all of the themes that I'm interested in. It has eating disorder, girls falling for girls, a journey of self-awareness, all of these beautiful themes. So this book follows two women, Rachel, who is struggling with an eating disorder, and Miriam, who is an Orthodox Jewish woman working at a frozen yogurt shop. And there's a possible romance between the two. Now, I'm really interested to see how these topics of eating disorder and a strict religious background will be dealt with separately and then together when they blossom into a romance. I'm really interested to see, and hoping that this book gives me some Ladybird vibes, like coming of age, although they are already of age vibes, and not less of a romance vibe and romance genre vibe, and more of a contemporary vibe. Well, anyway, I'm excited about this, and it's coming out on February the 2nd. Now, heading into March, we are having Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro on March the 2nd. And Kazuo Ishiguro is one of my favorite authors. He has the potential to become one of my favorite authors. I've read his Remains of the Day a few years ago, and it ended up being one of my favorite books of all time. It is such a beautifully written book. Kazuo Ishiguro has a prose that flows and shows you the way to life. I can't, he can choose whatever topic. In The Remains of the Day, it's basically about a butler in Britain, and he can choose any topic, and this topic will teach you about life. So with Klara and the Sun, it's his new book. It's basically a science fiction about this artificial intelligence Klara and her outlook, her perspective on the world and her perspective on love. And I'm really hoping, hoping, I don't have to hope, I know this book will give me beautiful prose and insightful thoughts and thought-provoking, thought-provoking thoughts that will make me think. And also his work is described as novels of great emotional force, which I completely agree with, and this is beautifully describing his work. Next up we have March the 30th, and we have Leigh Bardugo's Rule of Wolves, which is basically the second in the King of Scars duology. I read the first book last year in 2020, and I ended up really enjoying it. I don't really typically enjoy young adult fantasy anymore, but this one was really good and interesting, and I loved returning to this world that Leigh Bardugo has created and seeing this character, following them around. Nina was one of my favorite point of view characters. I trust Leigh Bardugo to write a good ending and a sad ending, and I'm here for it. Next up we're heading into May the 13th, and I'm talking about The Heartstopper by Alice Oseman, volume 4. So I love how Alice Oseman always plays with her works in a way that they offer kind of a message, and she always plays with gender roles and sexuality. I love her experimentation and exploration basically in all of those themes in her works. In volume 3 she introduced some of the more like darker themes, more serious themes, as opposed to the first 2 volumes. And the third volume really sold me on this story, and now I'm invested and I can't wait to read the volume 4. And real quickly, this is about Nick and Charlie, 2 high school boys, and it's about them falling in love and navigating their relationship as well as the anxieties of high school. And it's really interesting. It's kind of like a coming of age manga basically, which Alice Oseman also said that it's kind of inspired by that type of writing, so I love it. And yes, I can't wait to see or read actually, or both, volume 4. On May the 18th, we have the book that everyone is talking about. Everyone is hating the title, almost everyone, and hating kind of the cover. And you probably guessed what I'm talking about. It is Mr. Impossible by Maggie Stiefvater. And I'm not hating the title or the cover, but I'm strongly disliking it. Especially the title, Mr. Impossible. It is the second book in the Dreamer trilogy, which is following Ronan from the Raven cycle, and I love him. He's my favorite character. I will be here for any title, any cover, whatever Maggie Stiefvater puts out, I will read it. So I don't really care that it's called Mr. Impossible, but if the title can be still changed before May the 18th, when the book is coming out, that would be swell. That would be swell. Mr. Impossible. Mr. Impossible. We'll see. I don't know. I trust her. I don't care. I trust Maggie Stiefvater. The first book got some really mixed reviews, but I think this is because Maggie Stiefvater always kind of takes her time to set up the world, to set up the plot, to introduce new characters, and the first book was basically that. It was a huge setup. So I'm really hoping that the payoff comes in the second and the third books, and this is why I'm so excited for the third book coming out in May. Another thing is I really hope that Adam will appear more, because he's also one of my favorite characters, and he wasn't really present in the first book. On June the 1st, we have a book, a dark academia vibe book, which is called The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. I don't know how to pronounce it. So anyway, in this book we have a Cambridge University. We have a murder, a secret society, a mysterious Greek tragedy professor, and he might also end up being the murderer. Our protagonist is a group therapist. Her name is Mariana, and she is convinced that this Greek tragedy professor killed one of the girls in the secret society, which is called the Maidens, and they're kind of worshipping him. And Mariana is convinced that she killed one of them, doesn't know why, so she's like investigating. Can a summary of a book be more dark academia than this? I don't think so. And it's said that the book is heavily referencing the myth of Persephone, which I'm here for as well. And the most important part is that finally we are having a dark academia book which is centered around women. So we're also having another book coming out on June the 1st, and it is The Chosen and Beautiful by Kazuo, which I'm not sure if it's pronounced correctly, I'm sorry. Anyway, this is The Great Gatsby retelling, only sapphic, which is basically all I needed to know to put it on my TBR. I love The Great Gatsby, I love how tragic it is, I love everything about it, I love the vibe, the mood, the parties, Gatsby himself. And now in this version, we're having female cast, maybe queer, possibly, hopefully queer as well, and tragic in the end. I love it, I want it, give it to me. Now, on July the 13th comes out a book that I'm so freaking excited for because it has the best summary out of all of the books on this list. And the title is A Psalm for the Wild Build by Becky Chambers, which she wrote another book that I have on my TBR, and she won like Hugo Awards and stuff, so I trust her even though I haven't read her yet. But this book sounds so freaking amazing. It is a like 160-page novella, and it's science fiction, and it is following a tea monk, which, you know, tea monk, which I think it's got to do with Buddhism, and a robot who came to kind of find the question of what humanity needs. And it is a futuristic world where all humans are basically happy and they have all that they need. So the whole novella is dealing with the topic of a world where people who have everything, does having more matter? You know, that type of existential question, which I love. It's maybe queer, it's got some whispers of being maybe queer as well, which is always welcome in a book. So yes, I'm so excited to read this. Next up we have All's Well by Mona Awad. It's another dark academia vibe book because it follows our professor, our like main professor, and she's trying to put up a play of All's Well That Ends Well by Shakespeare, and her group is trying to play Macbeth. They don't want to play what she wants, and she's dealing with chronic pain as well. And then someone mysterious resolves the problem with her theater group, and they also take away her chronic pain, I guess, if I've kind of realized correctly what this book is about. And then she's trying to uncover who this secret benefactor is. But the deeper theme of this book is basically female pain and how we are collectively refusing to see it. And I really hope this book will be as thought-provoking as the summary says it will. So on September the 15th we have another like second volume in a series I'm already following and loving, and it is My Favorite Thing is Monsters Volume 2, which I already talked about this book in my favorites of 2020, but this is about a girl, a 10-year-old girl living in the 60s Chicago, uncovering the murder of her neighbor, Holocaust survivor Anka. I love this graphic novel, the art is amazing, the story is so emotional and cry-worthy, and I'm still emotional about it after like 2 years, so I just cannot wait for the second volume to come out. September 28th. One of the most controversial, if not the most controversial authors on this list, and it is C.S. Pacat, if this is how you pronounce it. Her book Dark Rise is coming out. We don't have the summary, we don't have the cover, we have nothing of this book. I just know that she wrote The Captive Prince, which is one of the guilty pleasures fantasy trilogy that I loved before and still kind of love. Only I don't admit it very often. And she wrote that, and she is coming out with a new fantasy series that is possibly queer as well, and this time it's young adult. C.S. Pacat is an author that managed to bring me to this verge of obsession with her trilogy, The Captive Prince, that I just have to read what she puts out next. She has such a way with words. I love it. I can't wait to read this. And then on December 21st we have a young adult. It's called If This Gets Out by Sophie Gonzalez, and this is about a boy band basically traveling to Europe, and we have two members who are in a relationship and they wanna make it known, but their label is not planning to let them like come out of the closet. So we're following them and their struggles basically, and I just love the summary. There is a fanfiction genre of just band members like that exists, okay, and I cannot wait to read this book to see like how fanfiction it will be, and yes, that's basically the only reason. And here we are at the end. I already mentioned all 13 books that I'm excited about anticipating in the 2021, and now I have a few here written on my laptop that already came out in January. 3 books actually, so I just want to real quickly share it with you. January the 5th we have The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr. This historical fiction It's about two enslaved black men who fall in love at a plantation, and it sounds really heart-wrenching, and that's all I needed to know basically. I cannot wait to read this. And then we have January the 12th, The Transition Baby by Tori Peters, which is a book that's been everywhere recently. It's about, it's a contemporary book about an unconventional family and pregnancy and gender roles and like sexuality, I guess, like all of that. And it sounds really interesting. And lastly, we have January 19th, Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda Law, which is a historical fiction set in the 1950s during the Red Scare in America, and it follows two girls who fall in love. One is Chinese American, so I'm really hoping to see like the romance between the two, but also like the state of America in that time and how her nationality influences basically her life. If you're interested in finding out more book releases, I left some links that I used for finding these book releases in the description box down below. I left some like links to the blogs that I used and stuff like that. So I'm really interested to see what your top releases of 2021 are. If you have any, please comment down below. And of course, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!